Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Bootu Boys, and this garbage piece of shit that you're listening to is, of course, the hit song Lock Your Number by the Silva Sisters, one of which we'll be covering on today's show. I'm Van Lee, and I'm joined, of course, by Spencer Hendricks and Brian Vaughn. Spencer, how are you today?
Well, I just want to say for a brief second there, you were actually matching the energy of that intro song, and it was very exciting.
It was contagious.
Welcome to the Bootu Boys, where we'll be talking about 90 Day Fiancé. It just got really interesting. It sounded like a game show was happening.
Brian, how about you? How are you?
I'm feeling like I need a few Red Bull and vodkas before I hit the dance floor.
Brian, recording, that's your normal shtick in real life. You can cut it out now.
Oh, I'll get back to my podcast personality. I'm feeling great. I'm ready to talk about some total shit.
Yeah, 90 Day Fiancé is real bad. That song was done by, as I said, the Silva Sisters. Darcey, who you guys have seen in this first episode, is one of them because they're twins. And, oh boy, more on them because they're a treat.
I gotta say, I know that's not the theme song for 90 Day Fiancé. I know that there isn't one, as you've told us off air, Van. But it sounds like it could be the theme song for 90 Day Fiancé.
Yeah, it pretty much matches it, exactly, or what it could be, anyway. We have a ton to cover. I'm going to disperse with the formalities here, and we're going to really get right into this.
One part of the covering we should do is covering up any DVD or Blu-ray section at any vendor that sells 90 Day Fiancé. Just cover it up with a blanket. That's how we should cover the show.
What you should do is actually just burn down any business that sells anything related to 90 Day Fiancé. And actually,
the real reason Blockbuster went out of business.
Let's back up a second because Spencer Hendricks, I know that this is the weekend after Thanksgiving, we're recording, received the bargain of a lifetime.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm really excited. Discovery Plus, which is one of the places you can stream this godforsaken show. It's actually on lots of places I noticed, like Hulu's got it, YouTube TV has it. It's all over. But I thought I could get a free trial of Discovery Plus, a 7-day free trial, which of course I would never renew. And they were so excited to offer me this special deal for Black Friday, 99 cents a month for the first 3 months. So I was like, okay, good. I'll take this because I only need it for 7 days anyway. But it turns out by accepting that deal, I paid 99 cents. I paid 99 cents for the first month of service for this program to watch 90 Day Fiancé, presumably. But I suppose that I should be excited for all the other great content that's undeniably on Discovery Plus.
It's like Shank a Bitch. Like that's the name of a show.
Well, guys, I'm going to be busy the next several weeks, so don't try to get hold of me. I'm going to be watching Discovery Plus for a little while.
From my brief perusal of Discovery Plus, what I've gleaned is that yes, there are reality shows, there are true crime shows, and there are, I guess they're nature shows, kind of.
Exploitative nature shows. It's not like Planet Earth. It's like if we beat up a crow.
Like if Jerry Springer had a nature show.
That's exactly right. You got my crow baby deep within your egg.
Let's bring out the bird.
Did you guys do the free trial or what?
Oh, Katie pays for it.
Yeah, I used Van and Katie's subscription.
Okay, well that would have been nice to share, guys.
It was in the group email.
The email
I didn't open
that
it.
I sent weeks ago.
I didn't open it, nor do I remember that happening. So
that's why I'm walking around 99 cents richer than
Are you sure you actually sent it to me? You might have left my name off there or sent it to the other Spencer Hendricks that you know.
Any number of the Spencer Hendrickses that I know and follow on social media. It could have been them. So maybe it's my mistake.
No, I'm sure I missed it. But in any case, that's fine because now I got it for $1 a month for 3 months. Does Katie have that deal? No.
No, I just paid $18. Too much.
She's going to be so mad when she hears what a deal I got.
I'm not going to tell her. She'll hit me.
I'm
she's going to listen to this.
My email, and yeah, you erroneously actually sent the email to former Yankees outfielder Shane Spencer.
That explains it.
Happens.
Yeah.
Well, he's out there watching 90 Day Fiancé.
You know,
enjoying it.
I fucking hate that guy because he beat up a pizza delivery guy when he was playing still.
I did not know that.
He and one of the other guys that were on that version of the Yankees.
Scott
they were.
Roches?
I think it was. No, Scott Roches was a nice guy. It was.
He's an angel.
They were drunk and stupid and
Ruben
like
Rivera.
pizza. And I have a lot of sympathy for pizza delivery guys because I used to be one.
Same here.
And I don't know, they got into it with the guy and they just beat the shit out of him. And I've always hated Shane Spencer for that.
And that's also like, who beats up a person who's bringing you the best thing a person could bring you?
Unless that person had destroyed that thing.
And then
But I don't think that happened.
then you got to think about maybe throwing some fists.
I like it a lot better if the pizza delivery guy does the beating up. That I can get behind.
That's a story that you read it and you go, okay.
I would let
Hero arose today.
if a pizza delivery person came to my door and said, "Can I open palm slap you in the face and you can have this pizza for free?" I think I'd let that happen.
That sounds fair.
Free pizza.
I actually do know a story. A friend told me many years ago of a pizza delivery guy who did have to get physical with a customer. So he delivered to like a college dorm sort of setting, and it's like some drunk frat boy or whatever ate like the entire pizza or something, and it wasn't even his. And the delivery man was trying to figure out whose it was, and this guy was just like ate it all. And he was like, "Hey, I need to deliver that to someone. That's supposed to go somewhere." And he was like, "Well, I already ate it, so I guess you're going to have to get it from me." Like he was being really antagonistic about it. So the pizza delivery guy beat the shit out of him.
Good.
Wow.
Good.
Yeah.
Proud
and
of
then-
Did he get the pizza back?
no, I mean, that really was eaten. So, I mean, I guess he would have had to have
Tape it
punched him in the
together.
stomach or something to get it in the
Yeah.
box in liquid form. But no, it didn't technically end well, but at least he beat the shit out of the guy but on the way out.
That
So-
pizza delivery driver went on to become the Noid. All right, let's get into 90 Day Fiancé here.
No, I really don't want to.
I can't put it off anymore.
We've been really trying.
More stories, someone.
Before we actually cover the events of the episode, I wanted to talk to you about the couples that are featured in this episode. And I'll give you a little bit of a bridge up to what we're about to see.
Let's talk about Kubrick's vision for 90 Day
for
Fiancé.
these fucking people. Sean, Abby, and Chris are first up in our episode. And Sean and Abby met on a dating site, and he eventually found his way to her native Haiti to meet her. He's like 47. I'll get their name or ages later. She's 20, so much younger.
Which, by the way, that would be like if the love of our life, who we met in 10 years, is she's 10 right now.
That's crazy
That's
to think.
that's
I gotta
like
tell
the
you
difference
guys,
with that.
My own father, he's passed away 10 years ago, but his final wife was, I believe, 34 years younger.
You say that like it's her final form, like she's evolved up to
The final
final
boss.
wife.
That sounds like an interesting sci-fi horror movie, The Final Wife.
So I'm used to this sort of thing.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, the trouble arises when Sean finds out that she still talks to her ex-boyfriend, Chris. We'll see
Who's
all
even
of these
older.
Oh,
Yeah, like 58.
I'd like
60-something.
64 is the
Jeez.
age, and I'd like to correct you on boyfriend,
Man friend.
senior friend.
Next up, we have Paul and Karini, and this is the couple. This is when I asked
the
my
it
girlfriend,
couple.
Katie, to pick episodes for me, which shame on you, Katie, for giving us an hour and a half episode next week. This one's 42 minutes, which is too long, but it was digestible.
This one was a lot. Yeah, I was able to do this one and
Mhm.
not hate myself.
Well, she picked the two episodes basically because it revolves around Paul and Karini. Now, to this point, Paul is a guy from Kentucky. He met Karini, a Brazilian girl, on a dating site. He traveled to Brazil to meet her, and he's in the process of courting her with the intent of asking her to marry him.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Courtney and Antonio. Courtney actually took a trip to Spain when she decided to look into local guys on a dating app. It doesn't say which. I'm assuming Tinder, Spanish Tinder. The two matched, but Antonio did not message her until she had returned to her native Florida.
Can
Finally,
Antonio message? Can he communicate and speak?
not well. I can't imagine. That's why it took so long.
I mean, in any language.
He sure doesn't act like a human.
No.
We know that.
Communicates
Not
with
at
his
all.
eyeballs.
Well, he did not leave a great first impression on her when she came to visit him because he didn't even bother to show up to the airport to pick her up when she arrived. And that happened a few episodes prior. I do remember that happening. And then we finally have Darcey and Jesse. Now, Jesse is a personal trainer and a fitness model, and he met the much older Darcey on a dating app. She's the one that sang that song in the beginning. Eventually, Darcey decided to travel to Amsterdam to meet him, and it's been a disaster since. Again, we'll get into it. And those are our four couples that we're going to be discussing today. And each one dumber than the last. I will ask you, by the way,
Okay.
start thinking
Yeah, how
about
do we
your
even
idea.
chew into this?
Because at the end of this episode, I'm going to ask you who were the most vile people in this episode.
That's fair. And I
then we'll do
wanted
it
to
next
actually
episode.
talk about in each couple, like who's worse. 'Cause
Sure,
There's always
yeah.
someone in it. They're all awful. There's always someone that seems like they're more antagonist in that specific dynamic, and it changes. You know, it's not always the guy, it's not always the girl, it's not always the local. It's like sometimes it's the local, sometimes it's the person visiting, whatever. So
Well, so let's start with Sean, Abby, and Chris, the two old dudes
Sure,
fighting
sure.
over the young Haitian girl. Here's the perspective I'm seeing. We've got two old guys who just want a young piece of cake.
Sure, yeah.
That's vile.
Now, granted, Abby has absolutely no personality, so I don't want to like completely excuse her, but yeah, Sean he's got some issues, that's for sure.
And she's also screwing around on Sean with the other guy very clearly. So I think you could point out to any of them being evil or the most vile. Chris is certainly the most very, very vile because
he's so smarmy and happy.
Yeah, and doing some gross things.
I also, I did not know that they based that Mad Magazine guy on a real person.
The more you learn.
Because of that goofy grin he had the entire time.
Altered face that he has.
Well, I'm actually going to pick him. I think he's the most vile of this group.
The Chris guy? I'm going to, I don't know if it's my turn, but for me, it is... Give me your phone. I need to know what you're doing,
yeah,
Sean.
Sean is... I don't like Sean.
That sort of guy, though, to me, is like the kind of guy that freaks me out the most. That weirdly possessive kind.
Also, were they in cahoots with WhatsApp? I need to see your WhatsApp conversation with this man. Like, why did they have to...
But then afterwards, we're going to get in your Ford Fusion car and head to the nearest Marriott hotel.
Why do we need to talk about which app they were talking in? Just say, I need to see your message thread. I just thought that was weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. So what do you think? Who's your least favorite of the
Honestly, I hate them all. This was the hardest one. I would say Sean. Sean was just awful. But Abby was annoying. The only line she had this entire episode was leave me alone. Leave me alone.
And it was a fitting line for this show and how we all feel about it.
I don't know why she liked Chris so much. Like she's saying I have to be friends with this guy. I didn't get it.
Friends.
Guy's got a penis like an axe.
Must.
An axe? Yeah. It has the sharp blade at the end.
It hurts.
He can cut down trees and
he can do anything with it. Take it into battle while riding on a horse.
I think it's easier on the other three couples to answer that question.
But yeah, all these, to be fair, these aren't likable people, guys.
No, everyone is a villain on this show. There are rarely people who you go, okay, they're kind of reasonable. If it's not a friend, like somebody who just shows up.
Right. Also, I think I'm more willing to give Abby some benefit of the doubt because she's 20, so there's a chance these guys are in their 50s and 60s and are acting like this.
Yeah, it's
frightening.
So Paul and Carini, the next couple, it's Paul, hands down.
Definitely.
He's vile.
He is
What
terrible.
is wrong with him? Like the criminal part's the least concerning part about that guy.
Yeah, first note I had was stupid/creep, question mark.
And it only gets worse from here.
Just walks off into the water or something. I don't even know where he was going.
Well, next up then, because that was easy, is Courtney and Antonio. And I would think it's Antonio, but also is he smart enough to say he's bad?
He doesn't know what he's doing. There is a vacancy in his eyes.
I am not
very good looking guy though.
I'm not entirely sure either because it seems as if Courtney has traveled to Spain
to badger him
to say, look, I have a lot of ideas about exactly how exclusive a relationship should be to an American, and I'm going to impose those upon you without talking about it first. Although, honestly, this is all set up by producers.
Yeah,
all
it's a very fake one.
But yeah, I found them both very unlikable as well. I think it's probably Antonio's worse because he's just he's just a cretin, but also Courtney sucks too.
Yeah,
I don't know.
She's pretty awful. I think she annoyed me more. He was just, like I said, he was just so blank. He didn't have any kind of
like a
awareness.
Cartoon animal where the tongue unrolls from the mouth onto the floor.
Gawking at the waitress.
At one point, he was trying to calm her down from getting mad about the waitress thing by counting to 10 in a charming way.
Yeah.
That's weird when we get to that, yeah.
Also, he screams awooga at one point.
Like any normal human would. So then our final couple is, of course, Darcey and Jesse. And certainly just taking this episode into account, it's Jesse, hands down.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Jesse doesn't know her nearly well enough to say you don't ever drink again. It's like he just met her.
Yeah.
No, and again, to be fair, she is awful.
Oh,
also.
yeah. And it gets worse with her. That's why I said just taking this episode into account. But even the whole history being taken into account, it's still Jesse.
Yeah, no, I think he was worse, and she was even doing that awful thing of like, it can't possibly be alcohol that's an issue for me. After doing like 1,000 shitty things.
What's ironic is even worse than these two is the next guy that Darcey is on the show chasing. She has another guy she chases after, and it's a guy named Tom. And he's this Brit that fancies himself a dandy boy with a lot of money, but he doesn't have a lot of money. So he literally would go to like, high-end department stores. I can't give you an example. Get bags from there and then pose with them like he bought stuff at the store.
Wow.
He sells cheap garbage online. He's very much a villain.
He's doing a disservice to the Union Jack.
Let's get into the episode synopsis. So first, right out of the gate, we get a previously on Lost. kind of montage showing what happened on the previous shows, as well as a little bit of a teaser of what's to come. You know, much like another show that we adored here at the Bootu Boys, Columbo.
Yeah. Very similar shows.
I'm not going to cover all that stuff. I'm just going to get into what happens in the episodes, particularly the coming up next, because we're going to discuss that anyway. So
Yeah.
I won't talk about them.
Do you want me to just recall a couple of things I thought in the previously on/coming up that begins the episode as someone who had never seen the show?
Sure.
Okay, these are just some notes I had. Montage of scenes, first peek at creeps. Intense dramatic music scoring every moment. Lightning barrage of weirdos and sounds. And finally, I think someone is going to get murdered in this episode.
Almost. And that's, pretty much accurate.
Yeah, somehow that's the coming up for a, I thought, lighthearted reality show.
It is not that. No, I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah.
So our first couple in the spotlight are Sean and Abby. We find ourselves in Haiti where things are not well for the 47-year-old dumpster man and the 20-year-old Abby.
We find ourselves in Hades watching this.
Sean says he is really wanting to propose to Abby prior to leaving Haiti, but he finds himself questioning her relationship with a man named Chris, her ex, what do we call him? Senior friend?
Yeah, her ex, get him to a home friend.
And like you guys said, he's 64. Sean is sitting by himself like a sad little boy who can't find his mom at some restaurant, while Abby is picking Chris up from the airport. We find Chris and Abby chatting in the back of a taxi, and Chris leans in real close to her ear and says, "When can we talk without the microphones?"
As the camera's facing them.
He's kind of half touching her at all times, like his hand's always reaching for her.
He all touches her a couple of times, too.
Ugh.
Abby tells him, hey, I'll tell you when we can talk without the microphones. And he responds with something, every just good friend says to another, "You're so cute."
Yeah.
I say it to you guys all the time.
Yeah. And then he says, "Would you like to touch my moisture-wicking shirt?"
Abby explains then in a talking head interview that Chris is 64 years old and that they dated for a few months previously, but now they're just friends. Back in the cab, Abby explains that Sean is absolutely amazing. Well, of course, besides his insane and unrepentant jealousy, that is. Chris continues to do the things friends do to one another, such as petting Abby's leg, brushing his hands across her shoulder, and just essentially pawing at her relentlessly. At some point, they casually chat about how Chris's scabies has cleared up, but Abby's still dealing with it, and guess what? Sean needs to be treated for it
So
as well.
I thought this was going to be maybe like a plant that they had encountered and maybe gotten a rash from. I was
Not
pretty surprised
scabies?
at the scabies reveal.
And they explain, the guy's like, well, you only get scabies if you're touching people real close and on and on.
I really liked the direct Abby line. "You don't itch anymore?"
Yeah. And the way he brings it up, "I'm so sorry you're having such a terrible time with something I did to you." It's like, that's how essentially it is.
Believe me, I also wish that I didn't give you scabies, but
I like, by the way, the phrase, "I did the scabies to you," which is a great way to say that. Anyone out there who gets scabies, please do that if you give it to someone. Chris and Abby just kind of keep touching all over each other, and she even holds his hand kind of at the end of the scene
it's
here.
like they're kind of pushing hands at each other together.
Yeah,
grinning.
it's very awkward.
Finally, the two arrive at the restaurant, and we shift focus to our next train wreck of a couple, Paul and Carini.
Oh,
The two are strapping on some rollerblades, and Paul reveals that he had previously on the show had asked Carini to take an STD and pregnancy test. And I remember watching this actually happen. It basically boiled down to Paul doing what he does and being a total fucking creep, and then demanding Carini take the tests, which really pissed her off, but eventually he wore her down because he's a lunatic, and she took the tests. Well, we find out that she was clean, and as soon as they do, Paul jumps right on top of her.
he is also overjoyed in the way that says, "I really thought you were going to fail this STD and pregnancy test."
What? I wonder if he was hoping that or not. Because
Oh
of
no,
the way
this
he
is
says
the result he wanted because
I think so.
he, as you said, this is a Bugs Bunny level cartoonish pounce.
Yeah, very true. Well, after busting her ass there at the skating rink,
Wait. Oh, okay.
the two scoot over to a park bench and reveal possibly my favorite thing that happens constantly on this show, which is that the two people getting married can barely communicate with one another because they don't speak the same language. In this case, Paul and Carini use a translating app on their phone to fight with one another.
But they don't name drop it.
No, not at all. It's whatever generic one it is. They're not like, it's not WhatsApp.
Yeah, we
So
know
they have
that
to just go
much.
with whatever. We will see this next week, of course, when we revisit the couple on Happily Ever After. But ultimately, what I think happens between the two of them is that Carini can speak English just fine, but she pretends not to be able to do it just to avoid Paul's bullshit. It's not as evident on this episode because they're still getting to know each other. But you really see it a lot in the next episode. She's just like, I can't understand you, Paul, and wanders off. And he gets mad and does his own thing. And it kind of works. So I see why she does.
They take up a lot more real estate in this normal-sized episode than they actually do in the super-sized one.
Yeah, they're barely in that other one.
Yep. Now, before we get into the conversation, I just want to point out that Paul has put his hood up on his weird mesh shirt.
I guess that's what he does when when things get real.
He does it later on, too.
Yeah, he does. Now, we should say that in the Talking Head segments, he's wearing a blue golf polo.
Yes. Yeah. And which... the uniform of Paul is the uniform of the shittiest person you can think of, really. Now, the reason I point out this mesh shirt and everything is that this hood looks like a chainmail headpiece. It looks like he's got to put his knight helmet on and go jousting. I don't know where you would get this sort of thing or why you'd be like, yeah, I'm going to wear that. That's cool.
I think we have the answer, and that's Kentucky, where Paul is from.
Anyway, Carini says Paul has not discussed marriage with her for a while, and they need to get into that. Paul reveals he did go there, Brazil that is, with the intention of proposing, but he keeps waffling about it because he has had some relationship issues in the past. The two aggressively text at one another, and Paul cryptically talks about his past, saying that if they are going to get engaged, he has to reveal his big secret.
So in our 2 episodes, I've only seen really these 2 episodes of 90 Day Fiancé related products. But but my favorite trend is someone having a big, deep secret that they need to reveal, and then them saying that every time a segment's about to end.
Yeah, they have to keep the drama ramped up so that when they bring it back, everyone's just crazy mad about what Paul has in his past.
Yeah, you're really waiting to see when the hammer will drop. What has Paul done?
Now, coming back from our commercial break, we check in with Courtney, who's a 26-year-old Floridian woman who is courting Antonio, a 31-year-old brick of meat from Spain. Courtney reveals she's been texting with Antonio for a few months and decided to go ahead and travel to Spain to meet with him to see if they could get it to work. In a Talking Head segment, she discusses what she likes about him, which is the following. He's very handsome. He has an amazing body.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she never gets beyond that. Yeah.
No.
And having listened to the guy talk, there's no way she could have. That's the only thing. She says she feels a connection or something like that at
with
some point.
His body.
That would be the only connection she could be feeling with Antonio.
Later on, she does again try to compliment him. Same thing. You're right. Like she comes right back to the same physical.
What else could it be? Look at that guy.
She says that Antonio did not make a great first impression on her, and of course that was not picking up from the airport. And then we see in a flashback that even though she has arrived in Spain, he is still texting a bunch of other girls as well. Courtney then reveals that her friends did some digging and found some very suggestive photos of Antonio, and she accuses him of doing porn.
Which this is actually a point when I was much more frustrated with Courtney.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He waffles a bit, and he's like, what are you talking about? She shows him the picture, and it's him sitting in a chair, just bare-ass naked, holding a pair of handcuffs. Now, it's not porn per se, because his privates are covered.
It's a relatively tasteful photograph of a man enjoying himself in front of an open flame.
With handcuffs.
With handcuffs.
We're going tasteful on that one.
Well, I mean, look, what a man does in front of his bearskin rug and fireplace with handcuffs in his own time is his own business.
Well, Courtney says that she's kind of concerned about this photo and what it might mean. He says it's not a big deal. If you don't trust me, you can go. And I don't want to spend my time answering stupid questions. That's probably a little too harsh, even though what Courtney is doing is stupid. Presenting this whole thing.
It would be frustrating to repeat, because repeatedly she's like, you're some sort of porn star.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And it amounts to like someone's photo at the beach if you just threw some handcuffs in it.
But to me, if someone comes up to question something about me and they're just learning about me, I don't care if they ask questions. He seems just mad that he
really is. And yeah, he's way over the top. I will say he really makes his point clearly when he says and this is verbatim phrase, sexy is not equal porn.
Let's put that into a soundbite. Get that out there as like a quote. Brian Vaughn says,
sexy
and make sure that's what's known about
equal porn.
I like it. She is, of course, being a bit pretentious here, but he's also being an asshole. Guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you know a little secret here. I don't think these people should be seeing each other.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was beginning to think that too. Courtney also does have a nice retort to this whole porn thing, because, you've got to understand her side of it, why she doesn't want a man she might marry being in erotic photos. She says, I just don't want to look stupid. How embarrassing is this for me? as she appears on 90 Day Fiancé.
And I'll tell you at the end of the episode what she ends up doing with her life. And it's kind of ironic. So
Train conductor.
Porn train conductor. You got it right together.
Oh, well, I'm interested.
That sounds great.
Toot my horn, that sort of thing.
Choo, choo, choo. Caboose.
He says it's a cultural thing. In Spain, it's no big deal. She basically needs to deal with it. So it's time to move on to our next couple, Darcey and Jesse. Darcey is a 42-year-old hobgoblin out to trick Jesse, a 24-year-old man from the Netherlands, into saying her name backwards 3 times so that she can capture his soul. She's a train wreck. Jesse's scummy as fuck. We end up picking up their story right here with Darcey revealing, get this, things aren't going well.
Wow. And I will say this time we don't have a language issue. We have every other kind of issue.
Evidently, Darcey got blitz drunk, or, in her words, had a small glass of wine. And Jesse, as the beacon of dependability that he is not mad that she was knockout drunk. He's disappointed in her. There's a flashback clip of Darcey literally saying, "You're not my boss. You can't tell me what to do." Which basically to me had like, "You're not my real dad" kind of vibes to it.
Even though she's twice his age.
And Jesse responds with, "What's with your attitude?" And we get a brief glimpse of Darcey's true form come out because her brow furrows here in this scene.
Oh yeah, she gives him a
crazy
stunner.
Eyes come out. She is like, you see what Darcey is really like. And that happens if you ever watch any history of her. She'll do her manipulative thing. She'll do her normal thing. But then when you piss her off, it's like the lining is shed and this demon rips right out of her.
Oh, I have some questions about the relationship too. So she's visiting Amsterdam, correct?
Yes.
In hopes of marrying him and bringing him back to America.
I believe so.
Why does Jesse want to leave Amsterdam to come to America?
Katie and I were discussing this in the kitchen today because I was trying to get all these plots wrapped up so I could explain them to you when we're done. And I was like, wait a minute, where did they meet? Why did he want to?
Yeah.
We couldn't figure it out.
It is so strange to me because can I trade places with you, Jesse? I hear they have drugs and paid time off.
Now, Darcey's talking head segment here is basically her getting really pissed off because she believes Jesse is trying to control her, and it is revealed that she got a hotel room by herself the night prior. So according to Darcey, it's all Jesse's fault, and she thinks he's out of his league trying to tell her what to do. She's a member of Degeneration X at this point.
So at this point, we have Darcey believing that Jesse is too controlling, Jesse believing that Darcey is an alcoholic.
Correct.
So we have two people who are right about this and this only.
Well, it's time to hear Jesse's side of this story, and we get to hear a phone conversation between a producer on the show and Jesse briefly explains a little bit about the previous night.
Gosh, what a night.
She didn't want me to hold her, and she wanted to get out of the place, and she ran into the bushes.
Ran into the bushes, huh? Like a real adult might do. I have no interest in looking that up or finding out if she literally ran into the bushes or not, but I found this interesting because sure is foreshadowing for the rest of this episode.
It most certainly is.
Jesse keeps harping on Darcey being intoxicated and how that's going to be such a problem for their relationship. And guess what it's time to do, guys? It's time to play dramatic tension hooks and talk about how it sure might not work out in the end, which is something 90 Day Fiancé does with every single couple, every single episode. There's always, it's not going to work.
Pretty much every single conversation they have.
Every talking head segment is the person complaining about the partner that they're seeking endlessly, but first prefacing it with, I'm totally
Deeply
in love.
Deeply in love. But if this doesn't work out, it's over.
And in fact, we get one of those talking head segments, and Jesse in his stupid face says, if Darcey doesn't take responsibility for this, then I'm out. So it's all on Darcey at this point. Let's go ahead and take a quick break here, and then when we come back, we'll find out just whether or not these two lovebirds make it or not. Just kidding, they won't make it. Jesse finds his way to the weird hotel lobby where Darcey has been sitting by herself and stewing, and immediately Jesse gives her a big ol' hug, and Darcey's tears start flowing. Now this, of course, is a shocking sight to behold, because usually Darcey is such a beacon of just stoic composure, and it's jarring to see her ever show emotion. That's called sarcasm because this woman loses it everything. If a glass falls over and doesn't even break, it just falls over a little bit, loses her mind and starts
Which,
crying.
knowing Darcey, a lot of glasses are probably falling over. You know what I mean?
They're drunk. Darcey explains she's been feeling claustrophobic and she needed to just get away for a bit. And that's why she left and got her own hotel room. She mentions that she feels like Jesse's being very controlling. And Jesse responds to this by saying, I made sure you were safe. Do you remember? Even when you're drunk, I was there. Do you remember? Huh? Acknowledge how impressive I am. So we basically have Darcey here with her hobgoblin tears, which are like crocodile tears in that they're very, very much fake, but they also involve being produced by a vapid hobgoblin.
Yeah, because hobgoblins, unlike crocodiles, are real.
There's 2 levels to that statement, and I love both of them. Then on the other side, we have the self-righteous Jesse who believes he's a godly saint who's protecting Darcey from the ills of society. And now Jesse has a very, very reasonable request for Darcey. Spencer mentioned at the top of the show. It's that Darcey, a 42-year-old woman, promised to Jesse, a 24-year-old man that she has essentially just met, that she will never drink again in her life.
And then afterwards, he kind of needs a ride to community college.
Now, Darcey has a very reasonable response here, which is, I don't think that's something you should ask of me at this point.
I don't think you're a grown-up.
So Jesse reveals that he has had a bad experience himself, or maybe with someone else in his life drinking too much. So therefore,
I'm really glad that you also don't know what the fuck he was talking about.
they didn't.
It was
they
very
just hinted
vague.
at it.
Yeah.
They didn't
Sounds
really
like
reveal.
it was really traumatic, though, because he's scarred by it.
It was as specific as saying, I've heard someone's died of alcohol poisoning before.
He just now believes that no one ever should drink ever. I guess.
Yeah, it's like the most extreme reaction ever. It's like, you just never, ever again.
So he says, if Darcey, if you can promise you'll never drink again, I'll always have your back. And we'll be able to grow strong together.
How do you trust anyone from Amsterdam who's like against substances?
Yeah, exactly. They're even taught that it's not the substance.
Maybe that's why
that
he
does it.
wants to leave.
Could be. Darcey does what any rational adult might do.
Agrees.
She agrees to his insane demands. The 2 hold each other and sob for a bit, which is not an uncommon sight on these shows. Back in Haiti, Sean from Ohio gets to meet Abby and her creepy ex-boyfriend Chris, who is all but fondling Abby as they enter that restaurant patio. Like, he's just grabbing at her the whole time.
Maybe if I picked you up and seated you myself,
Or on his lap.
then Sean would understand that we're just friends.
We're just supposed to
I
pals.
can't move my lips.
These 3 exchange the worst of
Oh,
pleasantries.
it's great.
They sit around and awkwardly stare at one another for a bit. Then
Sean
they start
mostly
in,
sucks down his soda or whatever it is, like
rage sucks it down. too.
whatever. If it's like a Coke or a Jack and Coke, that's all he does is drink
With
that
his
thing.
eyes narrowed.
This whole conversation basically culminates with some small talk, and it's possibly my favorite line of this episode.
Your first time in Haiti?
Yes. It's nice.
Certainly different.
Well, every place is different from every place else.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I like how Chris just tries to go along with that.
Roll
like
with it.
that's a good point. Yeah, true.
If things are, different.
You got me. I
That's-
technically I can't argue that.
That sounds like dialogue from The Room or something
Yes.
there at that point.
Greetings, fellow human being. Shall we discuss human being things?
Could someone pick up my left cheek and place it back on my Mr. Potato Head?
Your point of view is so different to mine.
We have much to learn from one another. Let us get married. That would be a twist I would watch. Sean reveals that he is skeptical of Chris and his intentions, believe it or not. And when Chris reveals how they met Sean, he gets huffy and
You
says,
said it was online. You said it was online.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talk about fucking Columbo. Sean's on the case with his Billy Bob Thornton beard.
and maybe it wasn't a big deal how they met, whatever it may be.
I don't
It's
see why
like he's
that's a
arguing the
big deal.
minutia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's staring at Abby being like, you said, and Abby's like, I don't really speak English.
Leave me alone. That's all she knows how to say.
After more waffling, Sean just says, I don't think you two should have a relationship, even a platonic one. And basically this all just boils down to an old man fight
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah. Where Sean is the aggressor and Chris does a series of walkaways and stops.
But still antagonize him along the way a
Yeah.
little bit.
But in the way, okay, so Chris is the sort of person that if you weren't necessarily in tune with the way someone might act, you might think his intentions weren't bad. I mean, I think anyone that's an adult would understand he's a creep.
Sure.
But he never says explicitly the sort of stuff Sean does. He always tries to say, like, I'm not trying to fight. Oh, goodness.
He tries to take the high ground. That's also a front.
It
for what he's
absolutely
doing.
is.
Yeah.
Like, when he stands up to leave, which he does twice, to get away from Sean, he walks, and this isn't because he's 100 years old, he walks away as slowly as he possibly can, almost begging Sean to come yell at him.
It's like they're about to run out of set, so they can't walk too quickly. Otherwise, they have to end the scene too early. Well, that's exactly what happens here. Chris tells Abby there's no point in having a conversation and good luck, babe, which is just the most antagonistic thing he could come up with at the moment. He wanders off. Abby's now pissed off. She's been told she can't basically fuck this elderly man by her elderly man fiancé.
Which is his only concern, by the
Mm-hmm.
way. Sean's only concern is that there might be a physical element to this, despite the fact that the emotional element is there and is obvious.
There's plenty to get mad about already, even if the fucking isn't happening.
Yeah.
Though it clearly is.
But Sean, and this again, to the point you made earlier, Van, this is about two old men no one likes who do have enough money to try and possess a young woman. And it's a big contest for them.
It's very much, I want a young prize.
Yes.
And I want to show her off. That's always the case with these older guys is they want to parade their trophy wife around.
Yeah, and it better be someone who culturally and linguistically doesn't understand me, because if they do, they are not going to see me a second time.
After this, we find ourselves in a restaurant in Spain where Courtney and Antonio are having lunch. Courtney, in a voiceover, reveals all the drama that we just saw with her and Antonio is completely moot, and she doesn't care about it because it was professional and for his job.
And that was like a deal breaker thing for her.
Almost like this show is basically making shit up as they go along, forcing some false drama, that sort of thing. Who am I kidding? The Learning Channel, it would just never do such a thing. Because this is TLC, the Learning Channel.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Is that what this airs on?
Yeah. What'd you guys
Wow.
learn so far? Big Penguin wasn't even in this.
What if Big Penguin was struggling to keep its relationship together?
I think the grandma penguin's dead. Like we see her as a ghost. This is a deep cut. So we're going to move right on past this, but dead penguins. Courtney wants to order some champagne, and since she clearly does not speak the language well, Antonio does the ordering. After ordering, he begins to ogle the waitress, and Courtney clearly sees it, even calling him out on it. But Antonio says he did that because he thinks he knows her. That old chestnut.
Yeah.
The conversation turns to Antonio's family, who's also texting him, and she asks Courtney, that is, if he told his sister that they were dating.
Yeah.
And Antonio does this thing where he gets insanely uncomfortable and pretends not to understand what she's asking or what's going on. And
Maybe he doesn't.
no, but that's
He might
true.
truly not know.
There's not a lot going on
No.
out there. Meanwhile, there's more and more of Antonio staring at the waitress, this time with her bending over a table and he's just gawking at her butt. Courtney once again calls him just straight up out on it. Antonio then in a talking head segment says it's just Courtney with her insecurities because in Spain, it's totally cool to gawk at beautiful women. It's a compliment, guys. Next, he does this thing where he starts counting randomly and then he grabs at and tries to kiss a very uncomfortable Courtney. So she says, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And she lets out a line that she thought was going to just stop him dead in his tracks because of how clever it was. She goes, why don't you get the check from your boo?
Oh, no.
And he doesn't know slang.
No, and
So
this is a
it's
real
whoosh.
cringer anyway.
It's not a good one, yeah.
It's not a good line at all. So we've basically kind of reached the end of this little segment. The Courtney, Antonio, hey, we're fine about the photos, but there's the restaurant ogling. And I mean, this relationship, maybe more than any in this episode, is just making up a real contrived conflict out of nowhere and then resolving it with nothing at the end.
Mhm.
That's fair.
If these two people just hooked up a couple times and moved on with their lives,
Make a lot of
it'd be
sense.
it.
Which
that
seems
way.
to be like what they want.
Yeah.
She is, and I don't know if this is pushed by the show or what, but she is very, very into the. And I know he's all looking around and all that, but she seems to want him like very close knit. She seems to be very, very controlling in her own right.
I think that's accurate. And we don't see a whole lot of her on these shows.
Yeah.
I just know what happens to her. But it seems like she's one of those people that, yeah, if you're dating her, that's it. That's your life is dating.
There's a lot of the characters in this show have that. Shows why they need to be on 90 Day Fiancé to maybe find a partner. But it seems like a lot of the characters do have that sort of monogamous pressure that they're putting on people.
It's awfully clingy. Yeah, it comes and to lead with that. When you're just,
right away.
Yeah, it's not a good idea, I don't think.
With all that pressure on anyway of, this is whether you get to move to America or not.
Well, are you guys ready for some more passive-aggressive old man fights?
Yeah.
You better believe it.
Because we've got some more coming up. We're back in Haiti, and Sean walks out of that restaurant to chase after Abby, and he has to cross paths with his mortal enemy, the second least intimidating old man in the scene, and it's Chris. Turns out Chris is staying through the weekend while Sean is only sticking around for 2 more days. So Sean just goes, of course that's what you're doing.
The biggest gotcha moment in television history.
Chris says, I'm not playing your games, and he wanders off. Sean catches up to Abby as she just kind of stumbles off into the distance, not walking quickly, just kind of meandering a bit. Sean tells her that he does love her and he wants a relationship with her, but he's bothered by one little thing.
The thing that bothers me is you and Chris having sex.
Can't imagine why that would bother him.
But it is all. I mean,
but that's it.
They could stay up talking till all hours of the night about their deepest emotions and feelings, and Sean would be like, did you kiss?
Sean keeps on doing this whole I'm the victim thing, but also I'm the one who really loves you, so you should be with me and not Chris. Abby continually tries to leave and walk away, but Sean just keeps chasing her down. She actually gets into a car to leave, but Sean manages to get the last word in here when he says, good luck to you, Abby, which is just, I rolled my eyes so hard when he did that.
And lots of crying in the camera.
The whole, like, I'm the victim, but I still wish you well sort of thing. Yeah, it's pretty pathetic.
Yeah, he sobs a whole bunch here, too.
The sobbing and then acting like, what are you going to do?
He says, Abby doesn't love me as much as Chris, and yet I sure do keep trying to be her wife. The thing is, I do love her.
Right after this segment where he does the talking head where he cries, I had a couple notes I put. I hate Sean. And then right after that, I had another one. I said, I hate Chris.
Accurate. Excellent notes. Carini and Paul are next holding hands.
Okay.
This is it,
Do
boys.
we need a fucking content warning?
I think we've pretty much covered it to this point.
This is so nuts.
It's crazy.
Okay.
One thing after another, too.
This is the fucking... This is the coup de grace of the whole thing.
Well, Carini and Paul are holding hands and walking around, and at one point, Paul calls himself the Gringo.
Yeah.
Did you guys catch this? Paul says he's ready to finally reveal his sordid past to Carini.
What we've been waiting all episode for.
Just bated breath, ready for this deep information.
Paul is the kid you go to high school with who he's quiet in school, which, I mean, I certainly was, but he's off to himself a lot, and you think, maybe, well, he doesn't have a lot of friends, but maybe he's like a hyper intelligent nerd or he has a vivid imagination or something. And then you just find out there was just nothing there. Nothing there all along.
Just wasn't likable.
And all along, he's had a diary of who he's going to kill first when he gets a gun.
Very mean-spirited. Like there's a legitimate reason he has no friends.
The two stop at some dirty concrete steps, and Paul types out what he wants to say in his translator app, hands the phone to Carini. Now, through the magic of 90 Day Fiancé's editing, we get to see exactly what it is Paul has said. We get a text bubble appearing on our screen that says, you need to know that I'm a convicted criminal. I've been in jail.
There has to be a better way for him to have this conversation with her. Like
texting.
You need to practice how you're going to share this news with someone, and that's not it.
One of the better ways to do it would be before going to Brazil.
No, you've got to get your hooks in first.
And then
that
he
way
went
she
ahead.
can't leave.
He went ahead and, without giving too many details, like, and there's a restraining order.
Yeah, Paul turns beet red, and Carini gives him a look that is somewhere between revulsion, disbelief, and like she has to fart. And the horror part.
It's a Carini look, so we don't really know.
Yeah, there's also not a lot going on up there.
No.
I'll point that
Maybe
out.
she and Antonio should have been the ones dating.
Well, I don't know. Paul's not... I think Paul might be dumber than Antonio.
It's true. We just don't know as much because he speaks, he can actually speak our language, kind of.
Well,
true.
But
kind
yeah.
Whereas Antonio, we don't know him in his native tongue.
That's true. That's true.
Paul does this thing that irritates the shit out of me. I'm a language guy. I have an English degree. I like language. I like following words and all that stuff.
Not
and
me.
when
I
people
hate
speak,
words.
Yeah, you just love music and
Big anti-word
numbers.
guy.
Anyway, Paul does this thing.
Music and numbers? Is that what you just said?
Combined. Put the two of them together. Paul does this thing where he'll say a sentence but slur the weirdest words in it. He'd be like, Carini and I was going to the superstore, and it's jarring to me.
Must
I
be
watched
the
with
Kentucky
captions.
roots.
I guess.
There's
they do
something
there.
about that accent that's part Kentucky and part just didn't quite figure it out.
In part, I was dropped into a hole when I was a baby. Paul says he has a lengthy criminal record. He's been in jail, been in prison for...
Burning down his own house.
Well, he says numerous things. But yes, he reveals he was accused of burning down his own house, spent about 18 months in jail. He also had a restraining order placed against him from his ex-girlfriend. I can't imagine why, though. That's
I
kind
don't
of shocking
either.
to
Like,
me.
probably caring too much.
Now, she was in the house when he tried to burn it down, as it turns out.
Maybe that's
Chained
it.
to a wall.
Apparently, what it was is he committed insurance fraud. He burned his house to collect the insurance money.
Yeah, just
That's
like,
why he went to
just
prison.
like Fight Club.
And it's one of the most
Just like Fight
one of the
Clubs.
most Kentucky crimes.
Carini doesn't seem to really believe any of this, but the stress of telling her about his past has caused Paul to do the thing he does best, and it's the first time you guys have seen it. I've seen it plenty of times. Scamper off into the woods to cry.
That
Yeah.
seemed like a thing he was used to doing. And she looked more confused than concerned.
Mhm.
And later, she decided it was concerning.
This is what I referred to as hobo martyrdom.
Carini even straight up says the line, "My God, Paul went into the woods. He's crazy."
Again, very slowly where the cameras can easily track him.
Well, see, here's the thing, too, is we don't get to see him really run here. I recommend any listener out there, and you guys, after we're done with this, maybe I'll make you watch one. Watch a compilation video of Paul running, because he runs like Forrest Gump before the braces came on.
Yeah.
And he's just real awkward with it.
Whereas here we see him doing kind of a Charlie Brown shuffle into the woods. And Carini's worried, too.
She's so concerned.
It takes her a little while to even go after him. At first, she just lets him go.
And one of the best parts of this, in my opinion, is Paul kind of picks up speed as he wanders off, but as soon as he gets around the side of some building and is out of eyeshot of the camera for like 2 seconds, he bolts.
He does one of those little kid runs like, I don't want to be around you. And then, gets around the corner after that and then slows down again.
While chasing Paul, Carini has had to climb over some fences. She comes across the dirtiest river I think I've ever seen, and she finds Paul just
it's
staring
filthy.
into it.
The implication is something dangerous is in there because Carini says this is a dangerous area. What does she mean? Is this like where the Great Brazilian, their Loch Ness Monster, their version of that is?
Well, we'll kind of get into this actually in a bit when we find out what happens, but ultimately Brazil has a severe crime rate in the poor areas, so that's really what she's implying.
I thought it was the water. Honestly, like the brown water was toxic or something.
He then has some things to say about the water.
The water being dirty.
She starts yelling his name, and he panics and starts chanting, "Don't make me go into this water. Don't make me go to this water. Don't make me go
I
into this
loved
water."
this part. It reminds me so much of a kid that, like, there was this guy that used to do a lot of bowling tournaments who wasn't necessarily very skilled at it when we were younger, and he would punch himself in the head after missing spares and things like that and be like, stupid, horrible.
I sure can picture
And
this, but I don't remember
there's
what it
something,
was.
I don't remember the name either.
Okay.
But he was in the travel tournaments that we did as youths. And this Paul scene reminds me of that, of like, don't make me go in the water, don't make me go in the water. Like all dramatically trying to self-punish for a thing that, by the way, and she'll say it explicitly, but I knew this without her saying it, Carini doesn't give a fuck that he has a criminal record. She's from Brazil and the poor part of
She
Brazil.
wants out of Brazil.
Yeah.
He has her ticket out.
Him burning down his own house because he's so fucking dumb he thought he could get insurance money is nothing compared to, well, I'm going to let you keep talking, Van.
Yeah, I would not be happy if a part of the Brazilian tourism industry over how it is portrayed in this episode. That's not a good thing.
Well, I doubt they're like in like Rio de Janeiro.
No, I
No.
don't think they probably have that industry there, but if I were part of it, I would not be happy.
The tourism industry has to issue a statement after this episode. Well, Carini grabs Paul by the arm, trying to pull him back from the riverbank, but Paul statues himself right there, clutches onto some small tree, trying to fight her.
Kind of dead weights himself.
It's so awkward to look at. I felt uncomfortable
It
seeing this.
made me feel like a mom trying to corral her kid.
Like a stubborn little kid.
Yeah.
Carini tries to talk some sense into Paul, but they clearly can't speak the same language. So she reaches for his cell phone to use the translator app, and he valiantly, I guess, tries to fight off her. But the sinewy little shit's overpowered, and they bust out that app. He reveals he doesn't feel like he's good enough for her, and she says, "It doesn't matter. I want you to come back with me."
How touching.
Paul then just keeps continuing to fight with her. She beats him up a little bit. Eventually, he slaps his chainmail hoodie back on over his helmet, and he's like, just burying his head in the sand. He's dedicated.
Doesn't she tell him she hates him at some point in this?
She
I'm pretty
does.
sure.
Karini's fed up with it. He heads back out to the woods, and Paul says he feels like he's a bad person, and I don't care if I get bitten by a snake.
No, this is my favorite thing ever, which is Paul believes he's being like a reckless bad boy here, like, I've wronged my girl. I'm going to self-harm myself, maybe several years from now. First, though, I need to submerge myself into some dirty water where, I don't know, I might get an infection or disease. There could be a snake. I mean, also, nothing might happen. It's just like it's not like, Paul's got a gun.
He is just...
It's Paul's got access to a dirty body of water. Shit.
How will we get past this?
Hopefully he doesn't turn the body of water at me.
Now, if you thought this couldn't get any more batshit insane, have I got news for you. Karini has made her way back to the park. She's on her cell phone with the cameraman behind her when a maniacal man waving a machete is seen chasing away several people on the trail. He runs up to Karini screaming, "Give me your cell phone," threatening to just chop her up real good. The cameraman can be heard saying, "Hey, we just got mugged." And as the machete-wielding man flees into the woods, we hear a bunch of gunshots, and the crew and Karini are crying. They hurriedly just rush to get out of there. She was legit mugged. Apparently, this is a real thing.
It seemed real. It felt real when I was watching.
My Googling afterwards seemed to indicate it.
My only thing that I wanted to talk about is something you kind of hinted at earlier, Spencer, is when we first see Karini and Paul again for this final little segment, they're holding hands, and he tries to pull out a cell phone, and she puts his hand down, and it's like, "No, Paul, it's dangerous." And that's when he says gringo, because he's like, "Oh, right, they might steal from me. This is a dangerous area." And that felt like crazy, not foreshadowing, but like, we're going to show you Chekhov's gun here, so to show you that it's dangerous.
Although, very easily, that could have even been after, and they edited
That's
it before.
just the other argument to that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it was realistic, but I could also see it being somewhat scripted. I don't know, overall. That's pretty much it. So finally, we get a glimpse of what's to come as a next week on Before the 90 Days montage starts. So I'll recap quickly what they're going to show the viewer to lure them back in. Sean is sitting at a table, and he says on his phone, "I don't know if I should propose to Abby or not."
I think we do know the answer to that, Sean.
We figured that one out by this point.
He hasn't. He's like, is it working or not?
And then a lot of the other stuff's related to other characters we're not covering.
I will watch every episode of this show if for some reason Sean just winds up with Chris. And they just have an elderly relationship
That'd
together.
be great.
How heartwarming that would be. Well, all right. So before we get out of here, I want to give you the updates on some of these couples. Certainly, Paul and Karini, we're going to revisit next week, so we're not going to discuss them.
It all worked out for them.
You just wait until you see how happy they are. Sean and Abby and Chris, let's start with them. This was pretty much it for all of them. The show tried to string it out a little bit more, but ultimately Sean could not handle being the silver medal here, and she really didn't want to be with him anyway, pretty clearly. Eventually,
weird. I was buying it. Seemed like real love.
Mind-boggling. Eventually, she ends up marrying some other guy in the UK, and none of these three have been on the show since. A lot of people come back. None of these have. People found them super boring, so we just never saw them again.
Because obviously, likability is never a thing people even probably want out of characters on the show. But boring would be worse for a show like this.
I think that's what it is. It's just boring. Again, Paul and Karini, we'll talk about them more next week. Courtney and Antonio, this one was also pretty much over before it started. The two never really got anywhere. The only thing I know now, is that Courtney is now selling foot pics on OnlyFans.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I'm not talking like jerking some guy off with her feet. I'm talking stomping in mashed potatoes.
Oh.
Crushing bugs.
Do they have any where she's just stomping on a can of Spam?
They might.
What about...
Is this your thing?
What about punting bananas?
I mean, that sounds pretty cool.
I didn't know that was anyone's thing.
What about...
as far as doing gross things?
Doing like a coin trick with her toes?
I thought he was doing a bit for a moment, and then that one came out.
Was it not? I thought that...
I guess we could call it a bit.
What about playing Tetris attacks with her feet?
She couldn't beat me. I can tell you that.
No.
Also, it's singular, Tetris attack. There's only one attack.
Oh, the sequel is called Tetris
It's kind of like how people say Squid Games when it's Squid Game.
Or Walmart's.
Yeah.
Like an elderly man.
Well, that one is plural.
Or one flews over the cuckoo's nest.
I always forget this. Brian's slightly older?
No, I am.
You're slightly older.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I can't call him the old man in the room.
No.
As the baby, as the young kid
As a person who is 6 months together.
Yeah, I was going to say we're all pretty much smushed in the same range.
Yeah, so Courtney, anyway, foot stuff. I don't know if she does like full body nude stuff like so many other 90 Day Fiancé people,
That would
but
be
she does
ironic,
butt stuff.
though. That is,
She's full foot only.
Darcey and Jesse. These two were on again, off again, despite being wholly incompatible. And in fact, he actually traveled to the U.S. to stay with her and meet her kids. But ultimately, of course, it didn't work out. Since then, Darcey has been on this show several times, in particular with the next guy, Tom, who I mentioned earlier on. Somehow he's even worse than Jesse. Now, Darcey and her twin sister, Stacy, have since been given their own spin-off series, Darcey and Stacy, where they continue being manipulative, vapid monsters who undergo plastic surgery as frequently as possible.
No.
And I wanted to talk about this because it is to the point where they're not even recognizable anymore. They're those people, you see them walk down the street, you're like, oh my God, how much work did they have done?
She already kind of looked a little weird in this one.
Well, she'd already had several.
for sure.
Figured, yeah.
But it gets insane. And they're both just
Now the
plastic dolls at
the
that
main
point.
question I have is how's her drinking? How's she doing in that department?
She continues drinking. I know
figured.
that much.
Yeah, I'm
She
not
actually
surprised.
now only drinks shots of Botox.
That's pretty
I wonder
much
if she goes to
accurate.
the same guy as Chris.
With his
Same plastic surgeon.
missing lips or too much lips.
He just kept saying, pull it tighter.
Okay, so again, on those two, they are now both so concerned with their looks, they've completely destroyed the remaining bits of humanity they've had left. And the reason I keep talking about this is because this is a mental health thing. This is clearly I have to be beautiful because my whole value is tied up in being the cute girl.
Sure.
Because when they were younger, and you can see pictures, they were attractive young girls. The problem with that, by the way, is there's a Reddit community I stupidly follow. There are every now and then posts where somebody will be like, they'll show the old picture of Darcey and Stacy and be like, they were so beautiful. Why did they do this?
Yeah, that's
It's
not
because
helping.
of that. That
Yeah.
is why you're still saying beauty is the only thing.
Yeah.
Stop doing that.
Let's stop. Honestly, let's stop critiquing women's appearances and let's focus a lot on how Chris looks like a goblin.
And the last thing I'll say about that is that TLC is, of course, encouraging all of this. And in several cases, I
Not
think they
the
pay
musical
for it.
group.
No.
They would never allow that.
Darcey and Stacy chase every waterfall they
Yeah,
could
I mean,
see.
burn down Andre Rison's house, sure, but not this.
So TLC, fuck you. You're doing this. And boy, I'm going to get more into that too. So final thoughts. Do you guys have anything else you want to say about this first episode of 90 Day Fiancé?
So I didn't know for sure if we'd be revisiting any of these characters in the next episode. As you mentioned, Van, we are. Just Paul and Carini, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not find myself missing any of these people. That's for sure. This is... We'll get into it more, I'm sure, as we summarize what we thought of the series next week. But this is not a good show.
It's the worst. I hate it so much. Oh, and I asked at the top of the show if you guys think about who you despise the most or who's the biggest villain from this episode. So
Ooh.
Brian, will toss to you
Oh,
first.
that is hard.
Okay, so out of this episode, and I believe I'll let you know, I have a different answer for the next episode.
Sure.
Almost certainly, but I don't know if it should be, but it's Paul.
I was absolutely going to say that.
Yeah.
Villain may not be the right word for it, but he is certainly the most, should I say, fucked up character. Like, he's just got so much wrong with him.
Character.
He's the one who I just was really like, what is going on with this guy? More than the others.
That's totally fair. Now, looking back on having seen a vast majority of these stupid things, thank you, Katie. I can say that Paul, in the end, is evil. I will say a villain, like most of them. But compared to a lot of the ones that we see going forward and looking back, he's more aloof. He's less malicious than some of them.
I didn't see malicious necessarily.
He's just stupid and mean is what it is, really, to me. So I don't even hate Paul to the degree that I probably should because I've seen so much worse.
That's fair.
Right,
I didn't
you
hate
know
him.
the
I just thought
depths
he
of
was
his
weird.
character.
Thought he
Correct.
was super damaged.
Yeah, he certainly is. Wait till you meet his mom. Well, you won't, but
Oh yeah, I'm not
Listeners out
going to
there.
watch those.
you have the 3-month thing for $1 a month.
Yeah,
I
you
gotta
got
watch
time.
the other shows on Discovery Plus. There's so many.
Oh, yeah, cut a bitch. I think that's what I said at the top of the show. I will say Jesse is my big villain from this one. Just
Okay.
the smug attitude he has, the you shouldn't ever drink. I hate that.
Never drink again.
It's
I
just,
think there are 5 characters worse than the next one. than
Oh,
some of
yeah.
these.
The next one has pure villains. Like, it's insane. All right. So that's going to do it for today's show. If you want to follow more of us on Twitter, you can find us at Bootu Boys. I'm at Manly Van Lee. I'm Van Lee. Brian Vaughn.
At Loud Guitar Brian.
Spencer Hendricks.
I'm at the number 3, French_hen.
And of course, we're available on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
YouTube Plus,
No.
Discovery Zone Extreme,
Yes.
the
I
LinkedIn,
wish.
Kmart.
Kmart.com.
No, you can just get us at Kmart.
How much do you sell for?
You just got to find a Kmart first.
Wow, good point. Are they even any around here? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Only in Kentucky because it starts with a K. And Kansas.
Any other states you want to talk about?
I don't know if
Canada.
there's any other K. Canada with a K. That's great.
And Venus
What if it's
State.
like an alternative Canada? Where's Jinkos and shit?
You can also, of course, find us on boobtubeboys.com. We have lots of bonus stuff on there. I don't have anything else to talk about as far as that goes. So one last thing before we get out of here. This is my final thought. This is a plea to my audience out there. Please stop watching this shit. You're encouraging these people to keep doing this. You're encouraging TLC to give a platform to domestic abusers. You're encouraging TLC to further push the mental issues that people like Darcey and Stacey have. TLC is the true villain of all of this. And I beg all of you listeners out there, stop watching this shit. Now, I understand I am technically profiting off of this by discussing it, which is why I have to use my final brief moments here to say, stop it. Stop watching this show. If we stop watching it, if we stop sharing bullshit on Reddit, on TikTok or whatever, then they won't make this show anymore. They'll move on. And maybe, just maybe, we can bankrupt TLC. Because together, folks, we can do it. If we hold hands, if we fight for what we believe is right, TLC, the vile monster that they are, will be smite.
Smoten.
Smoten. Smotered.
Smoggled.
So, folks,
Smaug.
please smog TLC. Stop subscribing to Discovery Plus. Don't give them your $1 a month. And please, for the love of God, stop watching 90 Day Fiancé.
I really like this sentiment, but I think it's mostly just so that you won't have to watch it with Katie.
You've discovered my evil plans.